Fresh and Buds.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds, and I hope all of you buds had a wonderful new year and holiday season. This is going to be a very special episode of the podcast, something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. Been toying with the idea. If you've read the title, you know what I'm talking about, but we're going to be joined by a guest, and he will be joining us here in a few. But before we get to him, I want to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about, kind of give us a little intro, and then also do some upkeep here with the Patreon, which you guys can all check out in the show notes. It's a way to help keep the mics hot and the lights on for Fresh and Buds and the Buds Nation. And you get access to bonus episodes. I like to call them freshies. You get a Romping Club membership card, which gets you access to the Romping Club channel and the Buds Discord. The Buds Discord, by the way, is open to all, and I definitely encourage all of you to give it a look-see and hang out in there. It's a lot of fun. And you also get a handwritten note from me, which is also very cool. And yeah, if you'd like to check that out, it is in the link tree in the show notes. And it's a lot of fun, obviously not required, but also if you're listening/watching this on YouTube, or if you're not, you should check out the YouTube because we also have another show on the Fresh and Buds YouTube called the Bud Rush Bellow. It is a live podcast that I do with Mr. Viz, aka Gary, live on Wednesday evenings, typically 9:30 Eastern. You know, sometimes we got to change the day or the time, but we try to do it every week. And, you know, because life gets in the way. But we have a lot of fun there. We crack some packs, which also we're going to start doing something new where, you know, on the show, we roll scab skins to open packs. I have 3 packs, right? And Gary rolls a dice, a D6, and however many action points we get, that's how many of the 3 packs that I open. And typically after the show, I would take the packs that I did not open and just open them with Gary. Like, you know, we're kind of talking about how the show went. We decided, well, why not just record that and put it up on the Patreon? The extra packs, the extra scab skin packs. So we're gonna start doing that, which is a lot of fun. But give the YouTube a look see and a you know, a subscribe or a like and a comment. That all helps the show. So without further ado, let's get to the intro before we get to my dear friend Dan. It is a new year. And like Hayden and myself discussed last week, 2023 is looking to be huge, like a huge year for Flesh and Blood again, right? So 2022 was insane, and there's no reason 2023 won't be the same. So what does that mean, though, right? You know, there's a couple things that means. So first of all, a bunch of new set releases. Obviously, every year we're going to have new set releases, but this year, unlike last year, we're going to have 2 draft sets, starting with Outsiders in March. So with that means that we're going to get a lot more limited play, whether that is at larger events or just at the armory level, right? Like a lot of sealed, a lot of draft, all that kind of stuff happening this year, which is very exciting. Also, you know, on top of that, there's also going to be a ton of new events, right? We know that this month we have ProQuest Season 3. I believe it's Season 3. We have the Battle Hard in New Jersey. February is giving us the Calling in Indianapolis, the Calling in Auckland. There is stuff going on, like at least for the first 2 months, pretty packed. And then we have the release of Outsiders in March. And hopefully we get some information on, you know, where the Pro Tour is and some stuff further into the year. But there's no doubt there's going to be tons of events this year. So, you know, and also as the game grows, there's still going to be new outside interest in the game as the game continues to grow, right? So with all these things, what do they have in common, right? So we know that the game's growth means new players. players are going to try it out on their own and they're going to fall in love like we all did, right? And we also are going to have people that are like potentially new players. There's always going to be people on the fence. They're interested in it, but they haven't taken the dive. They're hesitant. They have their worries about the game. So, I think as buds, which we all are, and proponents of BBE, aka Big Buds Energy, we ought to do our best to welcome these new players and convince those who are on the fence, right? Which, is why I'm bringing in my old friend Dan, who we had played a little bit when I first got my Blitz decks, the Monarch Blitz decks, well over a year now, a year and a half ago. And I mean, he liked it, but it was just kind of like, oh, we'll play this a little bit. And he, never got into the game like I did, but he also had a more time demanding job at the time, and now he has a new job schedule too, and a little bit more free time on his hands. So I thought it'd be fun to bring him on and kind of go through the pros and cons with him, and hopefully you all can use this as a kind of a like a blueprint for how to have this kind of conversation with folks that you think they would really enjoy the game, right? And we're not just trying to convert people. Like if someone just plays Call of Duty all day, if that's like what they love to do, we're not going for those folks, right? I would be great if they started playing, but this is not their jam, But Dan, I played Magic with for 10 plus years. He plays he'll play Hearthstone. He'll play all kinds of CCGs. So I don't think that it's a lost cause to try to get him to play Flesh and Blood. We all know it's a great card game. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna bring Dan onto the show. We're gonna try to show him the light or shadow if he wants to play Chain or Leviathan. Though we probably would want him to stay away from Leviathan right away, maybe. But but we're gonna bring him on and show him what Flesh and Blood's all about and see if we can't convince him to play some. Maybe I'll even get him to come to Battle Hard, New Jersey in a week and a half. So we will see how that goes. And without further ado, here is Dan. All right, we are joined by Dan. you all know Dan. This is the I guess Danny Fresh, we could call him. I've known Dan for a long time. How are you, Dan?
I am doing fantastic, and yes, I've had many nicknames, but we'll go with Dan.
Well, I gotta say, Dan, that the anticipation for this episode has been pretty high because I told people that I'm having someone famous on, and, and
Well,
as far as I know, you're pretty famous to me. So this is very exciting. You good? Everything good? How was your New Year? How was your holiday?
it was good. My New Year was very low key. We hung out at the house, and my girlfriend's son got splat ball guns, which are essentially just like little paintball guns that shoot Orbeez, and they were just running around shooting those. And so yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. But holidays were good. It was nice. It was very relaxing, very low key, which was other than the normal cousinry of the holiday parties.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that splat gun. I think I saw that at Costco. I took a picture. I meant to send it to you because it sounded like something that you would enjoy, or at least your girlfriend's son would enjoy. It seemed awesome. But do you want to tell the folks out there how we met?
How we met?
Yeah, how do we meet?
Well, it was a warm September evening, and me mother said, "Me brother is having a child." And how did we meet?
I don't. I mean, we didn't. I mean, we're cousins. We've known each other
Yeah.
since. I mean, at least I was born. He's a little bit
I was
older
like,
than me.
I don't know. Was there a specific time you remember? I was like, I don't know when. I don't have a time that I remember meeting you.
No, no, I don't think so. It's kind of funny, right? Like like grow up. You're like, oh, that's my cousin. You just know. So Dan and I are cousins.
Yeah.
we've been hanging out for a long time. We went to high school together. We started playing Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh together years and years and years ago, and that's why I have him on. And we I felt compelled to use Dan as the guinea pig for me to pitch Flesh and Blood to a player that was I would say is on the fence on the game. Not so much that you're anti the game or pro the game. It's you don't know if it's something that you're interested in per se. But before we get into that whole pitching selling point thing that I'm going to do, what is your background in trading card games?
Well, I studied at Harvard for 6 years, TCG, and I got my master's in. No, I don't. I played. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh. Actually, it probably had to be Yu-Gi-Oh. Two of my friends brought home like the starter decks, and they were playing it, and I was like, oh, what is this? And then I started watching the show. I mean, I had the Pokemon cards. I had Pokemon cards, but I did not play. Like, I think my first exposure to trading cards was Pokemon cards, but I didn't play the game. My
Yeah.
friend went to like Toys R Us, played in tournaments, but I never. I just liked the Pokemon cards. But my background would probably be, Magic. Magic's where I got competitive when I started playing, going to like 5Ks and going to, you know, Grand Prix and stuff. But that's where it really I fell in love with trading card game. Yu-Gi-Oh got me was like the gateway
Yeah.
TCG, and then Magic was like full on. It was gotta watch out for the stack,
Yeah.
pass priority.
All those things. Well, I would say actually, I know you say that, and I mean not to correct your own um your story, but I would say that you knew how to play Pokemon TCG based on the old Game Boy game that they had, which was so much
Oh
fun.
yeah, I did play the Game Boy game, so I did know how to, but I never played like paper.
Hmm.
Like I never felt confident enough to like make a deck. I I knew how to beat all of the gyms and stuff, and you're just trying to get like the Charizard out.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least that's what I remember.
I
In
don't know a whole lot about it, but I feel like it's still kind of like get something absolutely overpowered out into the field and win. But I
it,
don't know. I don't want to make it. I don't want
it
to
was a lot
make
of
Pokemon
flipping
so reductive.
coins. I remember like coin flips.
Hmm.
I think again, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh with you, and I had mentioned on someone else's show when they asked me how I got into the game. I think Yu-Gi-Oh was the first one that I had played as well, and I played with you and our friend Will and our friend Pat and our friend Jack. We had a nice little crew of who played it. I was not totally in love with Yu-Gi-Oh, and I had already had played a little bit of Magic before then. I was like, you know, I want to try this Magic thing out. And then one thing led to another. We started playing a lot. We played at Cyborg One Comics in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. That's where we went to our first F&M. We showed up with decks that weren't even completely legal, I don't
Yeah,
think.
they weren't definitely not.
Yeah. And it was a I would say, and I want you to tell me if you agree with this, but that like first couple years of us playing Magic was kind of the glory days, right? It felt like you could just bring something super weird and wacky to FNM and something with your own kind of personality built into it and like do well.
Oh
And
yeah,
and this is before Arena, this is before a lot of I mean Magic Line Online was around, but that was for drafting and stuff like that, and it soon became very net decky. I feel like in that realm, but uh, do you look back on those days fondly?
Bond. Yeah, of course. That was like, I mean, other than in the beginning, we came in right when Jund was was like the deck, or at
Hmm.
least, I mean, actually, we didn't come right in. That's when we started like trying to get competitive because I remember, like you said, when we first went, it was like we had we didn't even play correctly. We didn't. We had cards that were we didn't know what standard was. We didn't know what any of that stuff was. And yeah, I love that. That's the thing I enjoy most. It's deck building. And back then you could come with going to tournaments. You're like you wanted to go with like a deck that was the best just because you're putting you're going to a tournament.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun building a deck and having it especially having it go like 4-0 or 3-1 at an F&M. I love that. That was the
Yeah,
best.
it was awesome, and and there was also like kind of like that going to events with your friends and even just like sitting down being social, right? That was like, I mean, a huge part. We made so many friends during that time that we just got to hang out with, some that we probably don't want to hang out with anymore. Some got in trouble after that, but that's a story for another day. But, we also met a lot of great people that we would, even now I've run into them at Flesh and Blood events, um, playing either Flesh and Blood or at like combined Magic Flesh and Blood things. I'll still see some old Magic friends. And, that kind of lasting friendships is kind of what I've always held on to, right? And it's kind of what I do this podcast, like Fresh and Buds. It's all about hanging out with the buds. So, it was a good time. Now, in terms of TCGs and CCGs or whatever people call them these days, what are you playing currently in that space or otherwise, even if it's like other video games
I mean,
or board games too?
I just started to learn um, the One Piece card game, and there's like the easiest thing is when there's like an app, like a phone app,
Hmm.
and there's an app for just to like it's like a training app. It's not an actual. You can just play the game. It's good enough to just like learn. So, but I'm not playing that. I still play Magic. I still play Arena. I draft pretty like I don't put money in. I just do the coin things.
Hmm.
You play attack with 50 creatures, and then you save them up for like a draft, and you do a draft, and then you draft. I draft personally terribly. I always want to do combos and things, and then I'm always playing Clash Royale. That's just been I've consistently played that on my phone for like that's like a card game.
Yeah,
It's very I like that game. I don't play it competitively or anything. I wanted to when I looked to go to like the tournaments and stuff, but like that I just play my deck. I don't I'm good with my deck, but I'm not good with like the decks that do well, and
sure. You
that's
stick with like what you know, what you've learned, and all that stuff. And I mean, that's a card game. That's got a pretty, from what I understand, a pretty healthy competitive side to it as well. I mean, so is Arena just naturally, right? With the drafts and stuff like that, people just want to do well so they can keep playing, win the gyms and all that cool stuff. Now, what would you say, like, if you were to get into a new trading card game, what would you say is what you're looking for in a new TCG?
um well the thing I dislike about Magic is the mana. Like even playing recently, it's just not seeing a specific color of mana or just only seeing mana. It's like this game is like they're doing a million things and like I lost. It's all right. It's snowballing. I can't catch up unless I rip something off the top. But you either need mana or you don't. Like it's a much healthier mana base, or it's like you know
So
how
yeah, you have some issues with variance, some like high variance in games, right? Like, getting land screwed, not being
yeah
able to play things out because you built this deck, you want to play the cards in it, right? And I totally get that, especially from the Magic side. What else would you be looking for in a trading card game, even outside of uh just like gameplay? Like, is there lore? Is there
yeah.
other
I
stuff
mean
like that?
I enjoy lore. I always lore is a big thing for me, especially in movies and in trading cards. Like when they start to like go into like all right, they world build for me. There you go. And
Yeah.
like when it's an actual when they can like suck you into this actual world. It's like, all right, I'm in. Let's like I feel like they did a little. I mean, they did a lot of that with Magic. They have planeswalkers and stories, but I can't follow their story now because it is. I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah. I mean, they used to do like books and stuff like that, and I don't even know if they do that anymore. It is it can be very hard if you're not like up to date, or if you don't just like watch videos and stuff like that. So I understand that. So yeah, it kind of does bring me to Flesh and Blood, the game that has brought me here to this podcast. Have you heard of our Lord and Savior Flesh and Blood trading card
have
game, the
I
new classic TCG?
have I heard of Flesh and Blood? Yeah,
Yes.
I've heard of it. I've heard of Flesh and Blood. I see it a lot on Twitter. I see it a lot, like a lot of people going to Flesh and Blood from Magic, from like, and yeah, I see a lot of actually just Twitter. It's Twitter. Twitter hits me with Flesh and Blood more than anything. PAX. Like, how do they know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's probably because you follow me, right?
It probably is.
But you know, I thought it'd be fun before we get into the pitch for you to describe the game to me, to your knowledge. Like, I know that you have very limited knowledge, but you know what it is, right?
Okay.
What is the game to me, or what would you say to someone? It's like, have you heard of Flesh and Blood? What is it? What would you get? What would you say in like a few sentences?
It's a game where you have heroes
Ooh.
and your heroes are battling using the your cards and you defend with by pitching cards.
Close. I mean, that's like probably a good.
But you like build your hero out with like armor and a sword, a weapon, and um yeah, other than that. And then the mana source, it's red. That's all that.
Okay,
And
all right.
you pitch cards. That was more than one a couple sentences, but
No, yeah. I mean, well, a few sentences. This could be anywhere from 2 to 10, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, so it's a card game where there's heroes that you deck out with armor and a sword or weapon,
Sure,
and then use your cards or your deck as like mana and defense. I think.
that's pretty close. I mean, we had played a little bit, back when I first started getting into the game, and the fact that you remember that much is pretty impressive. Um,
Yeah, we only played like a once, twice maybe.
yeah, yeah. I brought it down to Myrtle Beach for we were going to a bachelor party,
Oh
which
yeah,
was just a mess. But that's another story. That'll be like a Patreon exclusive.
yeah, that needs to be. Yeah.
That needs to be. That was a bit too much, but you know that's pretty close, right? I will probably say you're like 80% there, right? You don't build you do build out your character with the armor and weapons, but you start with it. You start at full power, right? Rather than like placing the armor throughout the game. You start your armor, and then like as the game goes on, like you would in a real battle, like your armor gets broken or whatever, and stuff like that. You were like right there, and then you basically don't pitch the cards to block. You just use the cards to block, and then they go to the graveyard or whatever.
Okay.
And you do resources, and each there's different color strips that do different number amount of resources, which neither here. Dan, you were so close. That was a great job,
So
Dan.
close.
That was awesome. Now, based on that knowledge and your whole life and your philosophy on games currently,
Whoa.
before I go into this, before I start telling you why you should play the game, what would you say your hesitations about playing the game are outside of things like time constraints, right? Because even I run into time constraints. I haven't, because of work, I wasn't able to play in person all the month of December. So like life happens. Besides
Yeah.
time constraints, what would your hesitations be?
I mean, the only thing would be like access mobily, like being able to just. I like. I have my phone. It's
Hmm.
tough to kind of test sandbox with paper magic or paper, you know, TCGs because you need to sit down and actually play out. And I mean, that gets back to, I mean, we can't, the answer I can't give, which is time constraints, but
Yeah,
it's because it just makes it, the access makes it easier to kind of just play consistently if I
for
want to
sure.
like run games back.
I totally get that, and that's kind of the reason the name of the game. They wanted it to be played in the flesh and blood. They want it to be fully paper. They don't have their own online client, right? So that is like a major hesitation for you because you can't just jam games. You can't test new decks. You can't do any of that, to your knowledge. Um, uh, from your understanding, am I right
Mhm.
in saying that?
You're right in saying that.
Oh, thank you. Now, okay, well, here's a solution to that objection, Danny
Yes,
Boy, Danny Dimes. You ready for this? So,
I'm ready.
there has been a fan made client made for Flesh and Blood. Originally, it was called Flesh and Blood Online. Flesh and Blood, Legend Story Studios, the company that makes Flesh and Blood, told them, we're cool with you doing this, but you got to change the name because, we don't own you and we're not affiliated. So, there is
Understanding, yeah.
a website called Talishar, which is the name of a weapon in the game, and you can play. It's basically like the old Magic Online client. Probably runs a lot smoother than that ever did, and you
Yeah.
could just play. Now, I have not played on phone mobile, but I believe they have it set up so that you
You can
can.
do mobile. You know me. I'm a
Yeah,
mobile.
he's a
I'm a
mobile
mobile
guy.
man.
I mean,
I
we
got a
we
mobile phone. I got a mobile van. I got a mobile,
actually,
mobile home.
for the viewers, I think you could see. I mean, this is a van that you're recording from, right?
Yes, clearly. To the
It's a
right.
very nice van, very spacious. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
they
Yeah,
don't build them like this anymore.
not anymore, not anymore. This is what, from the 80s? I don't know.
90s.
90s. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
this is a 90s van.
so Talishar, you can play on your phone. I know you can definitely play on iPad, which I've done before, and then it's a desktop, so it's just a website. It's not even, you
Yeah.
don't even have to download a app or anything like that, and you can play and you can build whatever deck you want on like other deck building sites and just import it. You have your own, like, I guess, with a username that you don't have to use. You can just do it anonymously. But the cool thing is also, this is a little shout out to the Patreon. If you have it connected to your Patreon and you have folks like Fresh and Buds or Arsenal Pass or anybody else like that, they, we have our own sleeves that you can do on Talishar. So
Oh,
it's kind of,
really?
yeah. We got Fresh and Bud sleeves. It looks like the Bud's
That's
Fresh House blue cheese
that's
things right
cool.
there. So, um, how about that for a solution to your hesitation, Dan? Isn't
Well,
that?
that sounds like the perfect solution to my. Actually, that does sound awesome. That's like I forgot to mention card game Dominion.
Oh
Like
yeah,
yeah, like
Dominion.
but they have an online client where you just kind of go on the. I think you have to pay for like upgrades. So you just bring in your own card, like your own.
So there's two. I mean, there might be more, but there's two main deck building sites. Kind of like, like Decked was for
Yeah.
Magic, right? You could just build a
Did you
deck.
pay for that, or did you download that?
I
Because there's
down.
a pay. There was
I
a.
think I had the paid version.
I paid. Yeah, I paid for it too. Because
Yeah,
like honestly, back then that was like the best way to just jam like on your phone. It was like you make a deck,
yeah,
just jam like practice draws. Just but
yeah. We used to just pretend like we were playing each other. I remember that.
oh
But
yeah, we did.
you mentioned paid. You don't have to pay for. It's either FabDB, which stands for Flesh and Blood Database, or Fabrary, which stands for Flesh and Blood Library,
Okay.
and you can build decks on there. And I think Fabrary, I think they might both have the functionality too. You can just build the deck and then click the link on Fabrary. It says import to Talishar, and it'll just go straight to Talishar, and you'll just get queued up for a game.
What a world we live in.
I know, isn't that crazy? This is the world of flesh and blood, and it's pretty incredible. Now, it doesn't stop here. That's just a solution to your hesitation. Let me get to the selling points of this game. Dan, are you ready to get your mind blown?
Give it to me.
All
I'm on
right.
the edge of my seat.
First of all, I got notes here. So, first, Legend Story Studios, the company that makes Flesh and Blood. There's actually two points I want to make about them. They're located in New Zealand. Now,
Okay.
that might not
I'm
be a
sold.
huge deal.
Sold. I'm in.
That might not be a huge deal to a lot of people, but Dan and I love Lord of the Rings and the movies and New Zealand. I mean, basically anything that's come out of New Zealand has been pretty good in the past like 20 years, right?
I don't
I
know if
mean,
that's yeah.
Taiki Waititi, Flight of the Concords,
Yeah, that's true.
um, Flesh and Blood, Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson. That's just a bonus, a little cherry on top. But they're an indie company, right? So that might come with some pros and cons, right? Like the cons are like, well, they don't have a lot of the purchasing power of something like Hasbro, who owns Magic the Gathering, right? And they can't, you know, the pricing or the timing of products getting out to the world might be tougher for them. But the pros is that the product is coming from the heart because there's one creator, James White, who created the game, and it's a passion project for him. He's hands on with everything, and he cares so much about it because it's his baby, right? And he's a former like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic player, so he gets it. He wants that classic feel to a game, and that's kind of cool. And I mean, indie companies, sure, it can be sometimes uh not the best, but a lot of times it is. Like you look at like food, like you go to like the soda shop or whatever. I don't know. We go into a lot of soda shops, but like,
I love the soda shop
but
in Nashville. Or where's the Olin soda shop?
no, it's not there anymore. Olin Rogers used to have a soda shop in Nashville. R.I.P. to the soda shop. But you go and you're like, oh, I can get a Coca Cola, which is like great, and everybody knows that. But or you can get like a Jones soda, and they got some wild flavors. And there's like no, I don't want to speak to whether Jones has high fructose corn syrup or not, but we know Coke does, right? So it tastes good, but maybe it's not the best for you. So that's one point. Are you on board so far?
You sold me in New Zealand.
Okay. Now, another thing is like, well, you're going to a tournament, right? I understand this. You're like, oh man, I don't have the cards. I don't want to spend a lot of money. I will say on the money part, it is not that bad, except for like some equipment pieces, right? The generic equipment pieces that can be played in anything. But even those, like, and what I'm thinking of is a card called Fyendal Spring Tunic. Very good card. There are fine budget replacements. And also, a pitch to you, Dan, is you happen to know somebody who has a pretty fleshed out collection. So you
Yeah,
could borrow cards, which
yeah, I
is
know. He he gave me a pretty cool One Piece card for an alt art
who,
for
Ben? Shout out to
yeah.
Gengar Gang on Instagram. Our mutual friend Ben, who taught Dan how to play One Piece. I didn't get to learn yet. I
He
stay
no,
away from.
he didn't end up teaching me.
Oh, you didn't?
I ended up having to. I learned it on my own through that app.
Hmm.
But we were going to play. I had to end up leaving early to.
It happens. It happens. Now, so I have a fleshed out collection. So if you ever needed to borrow anything, obviously you know me, and you could borrow things. I would let you. I'd even build you a deck, man. I would build you.
I'd be open to that. I'd listen. New
I'm making
Zealand.
some good points. I mean, wait, I'm not
You're making
even
some
done.
really good points.
I have a whole
All of my
page.
pain points, you are just alleviating.
Here's another big selling point. We both have played D&D and we've enjoyed it,
Oh
right?
yeah,
This has some D&D feels because you're picking your class, you're picking like what weapons you want to, and your equipment. That's like a lot of fun, right?
yeah.
That's pretty cool. You mentioned drafting earlier. The drafting experience in Flesh and Blood is so much fun. I love drafting this game.
You gotta
Unfortunately,
teach me that. Like that's the one thing. I'm like as far as standard and whatever. I'd prefer limited. Like
yeah.
and I prefer like making your deck on the fly, making a give them what you got, and all right, let's build something.
And I mentioned at the top of the show before you came on that we have 2 draft sets coming out in 2023, which is very exciting. And I am more than willing to teach you. You mentioned land screw, low variance in this game, right? You should be able to do something with any of your hands, whether it's block or block half of it, or even just take all the damage that they're attacking you with and then playing out your hand. You should, I mean, there are some times when you can't do anything, but then you get a whole new hand after. So it's not like there's non games, there's always
Oh
games
yeah,
to play.
that is nice. A new hand, like that's that's the thing. Like with Magic, it's like I still got a crappy hand. It's next turn and
Yeah,
nothing's changed.
you're sitting there waiting to die. Now, like
I
there are
still
times
drafted a bunch of 1-drops for some reason.
there are times when things don't go your way in this, but it's a TCG. There's bound to be some variance,
Yeah,
but
there has to
it
be. It wouldn't be fun if there.
yeah, but
But
it's mitigated.
it is the worst when you're a non-factor. When you're
Yeah.
just sitting there like pass, pass. Like because you could go like 3 turns without a land and the game's over. You're done. You
Yep,
lose because
that's
there's you. They play like 3 creatures. Like I can kill one of them and like it's
I
yeah.
get it. And so something I mentioned about the equipment, you start with the equipment out. Now the cool thing is, and now I don't know if you're like this, but some people are. Now I think it's worth noting that if you got like a really cool cold foil or like a really cool alt art thing, you get to have that on the field. You get to be like, hey, look at this cool thing. I have that cold foil hardened cross strap from Alpha back there. It's graded. You can't really see it, but if I wanted to play that, I could be like, here's my graded equipment piece out in the field. Like,
Oh, you can play with graded cards.
yeah, why not? It's just a protective casing.
That's
Oh,
cool.
not in your deck, but you could play like
No,
equipment.
yeah, but because it starts out on the field with your hero,
Yeah,
your
it's
your
it's
hero
yeah.
your
It
hero
starts out
starts
in
on
the
the field.
yep. Hero starts on the field. Everything starts out in the field. So I mean,
That's cool.
it's up to you if you want to do that. You know,
What is there? There's nothing that would like shuffle it back into your deck or force it to go into your deck. What would
there
happen then?
there are some that are can go to the graveyard and they get it wouldn't get shuffled back into the deck, but it could go to like a exile zone or a banished zone in this game. If that's the case, you would have to probably play it regular in a regular sleeve. But there's only like 1 or 2 decks that have to worry about that. So
I'm gonna just go to tournaments with those cards just so you can just so when you pull that out, I'm just like and I won't even try and win. It'll just be so I can do that interaction. You're like, God.
but so that's a point. It's best of one, which you
Oh
know
yeah.
but you pre-board, you pre-sideboard, so you reveal your heroes, and then based on that information, you're like, okay, that hero does this most of the time. I'm gonna board for that, like that hero. And then there's also the kind of cool thing, you can kind of trick your opponent, like, oh, I'm revealing this hero. 90% of the time, it's an aggro deck, but 10% of the time, it's a control deck. You might be playing the control version, and your opponent boards in for the aggro, and you're like, oh, I'm a little sneaky, a little tricky sneaky. You know,
Well,
it might not
yeah.
always pan out, but it's something you can do.
A little tricky sneaky. I
Uh,
like it.
it
Wait,
rewards good play. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
so there's not like it's not with your hero. You build the deck around them so it can be. It doesn't. It can't because you said that he's normally aggro, but how would you build like a control?
So one of the heroes I'm thinking about is Katsu. It's the original ninja hero, and there was that you can play Katsu in a way where you're just like, going ham with your swords and stuff like that, or you can play where you're like playing super defensive and just like getting in with a little efficient attacks. So you're kind of slowing the game down or whatever. So you have to make a call on what kind of Katsu that person is bringing to the battlefield, which is it's cool. It adds a extra little flavor. Um, it rewards good play. This is one of the big things about this game is with that lower amount of variance, the better players win. So like if you get better, you're going to win more. We see, for example, Michael Hamilton is the world champion and the U.S. national champion. Has won multiple tournaments. He is the de facto best player in the world. Will he always be? Maybe. Or people are just going to continue to get better and try to beat him
Until I learn.
until Dan learns. How about that? Um, and we're talking about like a lot of different like competitive formats, but there's also fun formats. There is a version that's almost like EDH called Ultimate Pit Fight. There's Commoner, which is all commons. It's a lot of fun. Smithel Gaming runs an online tournament of like an online league of Commoner games, which is so much fun. I've done it. Anybody listening that has not checked out Smithel Gaming's Commoner League should check it out. There's a great community, man. I mean, the buds are amazing. I mean, the buds are the best, but like the community overall is so positive. I mean, there's always going to be a couple bad eggs, but the community rocks. And I'm sure you can attest to this. The Magic community, we made some good friends, but we had some struggles with like kind of toxicity and
Oh yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
definitely. There is some of that. I mean, I don't want to say that it's just exclusive to Magic, but yeah. I mean, from again, I haven't been in the Flesh and Blood, but all like the tweets are usually people like they're good, they're positive, like about the game, about. And I've seen personally people like going from Magic to Flesh and Blood on like being like, listen, I can't do Magic anymore. I'm
Hmm.
going to Flesh and Blood,
Yeah,
and
and there's a robust organized play system too, which why a lot of Magic players come over here because Magic isn't really giving that to players. This has like a whole way to get to like the Pro Tour. It gives you a laid out way.
oh
This is how
yeah,
you get to the Pro Tour, which is kind of
that's
cool.
you did. I remember you saying that there's like a structure to like a much more because they used to have that.
Yeah, years ago. Yeah, there was like straight up PTQs, but I don't want to dunk on Magic the whole podcast, but like,
No, 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 no. I'm not,
yeah,
and because and it's just with Magic, it's more like they just don't have paper. Like Paperman, like, as much as I said that the issue with me for Flesh and Blood was I can't play it on my phone. There is something about going and playing in person, like
mhm.
going and like those tournaments, doing the 5Ks in person. Like it's a whole event. It's a whole like there's a whole vibe. There's a whole you're hanging out with your friends. You're you're meeting. It's more just meeting up. Even if you don't do well, it's like you do side events. You do. It's and there really isn't that. I mean, I'm sure there is. I haven't really been playing
They-
Magic anymore, but
I mean,
on that,
they have some stuff. There's it's not like it's non-existent, but in terms of like becoming a professional Magic player, entering the Pro Tour, it's very ambiguous.
yeah.
It seems, or just too many steps, right? It used to be you win a PTQ, you're in the Pro Tour. Now it's you got to win a local PTQ to get into a regional PTQ to get to the Pro Tour. I get what
So
they're
hard
trying
to
to
win
do.
though. Like it's so hard to consistently win.
Sure,
You know.
it's tough. You got, I mean, it's whatever. I don't want to totally indict that system, but it can be frustrating for people who really want to do that. Flesh and Blood is just like, hey, listen, you get a Pro Tour invitation if you do this, 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 and we're gonna lay that out for you, and we'll schedule the events. Flesh was not perfect. There's still a lot of things to figure out, but it's nice to have. Now the next thing is Living Legend, which I've talked to you about before.
You have. I do know a bit about that's like your banning system for specific heroes.
Yeah, it's banning slash rotation, right? In Magic, you would know standard rotations, like every couple sets, a new some older sets would get rotated out. In this, rather, if a hero gets really good, starts winning a lot of like high ranked events, they'll get points. Once it gets a certain amount of points, it's rotated out. It's retired. And the nice thing about that is all of a sudden something gets retired. Your favorite deck, your like the deck that you stuck with your guns like you do in Clash Royale, maybe starts to look a little bit better because it had a bad matchup against that last hero, right? And also, some other cool thing, they release supplemental sets, which give a little bit of something to every hero or every class, I should say. And you can like add it to your deck, and all of a sudden, maybe one card gets printed in these supplemental sets, like your deck's like goes from C tier to A tier. You're like, all right, well, we're cooking with gas now.
I like gas. How many heroes are there?
There are in terms of adult heroes, which that can be played in the main uh, format called Classic Constructed, because they have young versions of themselves too that played in the shorter Blitz format, which I didn't
Oh,
go over, but we're getting you just on the board with the game. Then we'll do all that later. But there is, I don't know, I'm looking at like 15, 16, maybe 18, but some have been living legend, so they've been retired.
okay. Got it.
And the kind of neat thing is they said that we're eventually going to introduce a format that includes all the living legend heroes, so you can start playing those old heroes again, which is kind of cool.
That does sound
Another
cool.
cool thing is you're
Like
kind of in on
legacy.
the ground floor. The game's only been around since 2019. That's a cool thing to be, right? Ground floor is great.
It's hip. It's cool.
It's hip. It's cool.
Yeah. I think right now with you said is are like the heroes different. You can they're like you can only use a certain amount of type of card when you choose the hero, right?
Yeah. So, for example, I talked about Katsu. Katsu's a ninja. You can only play ninja cards in there. They also added talents to the game, so you can be like a shadow ninja, right? All of a sudden, the shadow ninja hero, like what's there isn't one yet, but if there was a shadow ninja hero, they can play ninja cards plus shadow cards plus they probably print shadow ninja cards too, and that's just for that hero. So it's really cool. Talent system really makes it robust, and we're going to get to that when I talk to you about all the heroes. And then the number one thing that is a selling point for me to you is that I play the game.
Oh yeah. Well, that would it does make it easy. I mean, like as far as playing with someone, or
Yeah.
because like it with new games, not having someone to play with is kind of that's why playing online is easy. And but with paper TCG, it's like all right, you can go, you know, well, especially with us, a family event, and just be like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I'll go grab my deck, and run some games.
It's a lot of fun, and you know maybe we'll jam some Talishar soon. Maybe
Yeah.
even after this, I'll teach you how to play it, and we'll see if you like it. But I'm going to go through all the heroes now.
Okay.
And this is what I was just like all the heroes that exist. I'm going to give you this kind of an elevator pitch on all of them. And I want you to say, "Oh, that sounds cool to me. Something I would want to play," or just say, doesn't really sound cool to me." I'm going to tell you what about the hero, like lore wise or like flavor wise, and then like also how the gameplay plays.
Okay.
You ready, Dan?
Oh, I'm ready.
The first hero, I'm going to go in release order. So I'm going to go with the heroes from the first set, second set, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
We mentioned Katsu. This is the original ninja. Katsu likes to play a bunch of different attacks in one turn, right? So in Flesh and Blood, you get one action point, but if something has go again, it replenishes that action point. You can keep going and doing things. So what the ninja likes to do is play cards with combo. You play a card that says if this was played after another card that has combo, it gets an additional effect. So you're just trying to like put together a bunch of cool attacks for like one huge turn. And also he has Kodachis, so he's got two little swords. He's got two one-handed swords. Does that sound cool to you, dude?
That sounds actually, yeah, but that one
Mm-hmm.
sounds like my play style.
I think you'd really enjoy it.
Do you draw cards? Like,
You
how do you?
can.
What's the fodder for like if you're going to do a bunch of attacks?
So the Kodachis cost one each to attack, and if you pitch something with cost 0, they'll get go again. So you start with like you don't have to start, but like you figure out how you want to start. You can go 1 with the Kodachi, 2 with the Kodachi, and then then you'll play something else, and then there's things like have on hits where like if this hits, you can go get something from your deck and play it.
I should probably ask first. How many actions you have to
One action, but
one
if it
action?
has go again, gets replenished.
Got it.
So yeah, this is a go wide deck typically. Also can be control like I mentioned before, but typically it is the go wide deck, and it's very cool. Glad you think that one's cool. Next is Reinar. This is the brute hero. So brute's all about big attacks, right? It cares about attacks with 6 attack or more, right? It It has a lot. This is the highest variance class. It's all about big attacks with high variance. It has a leg piece for the armor called scab skin leathers. You can roll a dice and you get that many action points rounded down. So if you roll 1, you get 0 action points. That's your turn. You got to pass turn, or you can get 3. So it's got stuff like that. It's hitting with big attacks. Nothing really on hit, but like you can try to go and you just want to go tall and rather than wide, like Katsu.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
That one sounds like a less my style as far as like I like the brute, the 6. You know, as far as it sounds like it would take a lot of opponents' cards to like block. So you'd be if you have good turns, but it
Oh,
also sounds like I
also,
could
I
take
should
it just
mention
take it.
I should mention
Go on.
Reinhardt also has a keyword called intimidate. So intimidate when you
He only blocks with
discard.
1, right?
Well, you discard a 6. They banish a card from their hand until the end of turn, so they have one less card in their hand to block with. So you're also like intimidating a bunch, try to like push through, but the problem is they don't block with cards, so they're going to have a full grip when you pass back. So you almost like you want to play a pretty mid range game, and then
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think this would be for me. I think, especially with the not having any action points, my
sure.
luck it would just be like, I got 1, I got another 1. All right,
Oh, trust me,
pass.
I play a lot of brute, and that happens a lot. Um, Next is Bravo. This is the Guardian. So if you look at a picture of Bravo,
Is it to
he's
do with the hair?
hair, big, bare chested, like kind of like he's a showboat. Basically, Guardian's a very defensive class, and you also like you defend, wait for your time to hit them with a giant attack that like if it deals 4 or more damage, they'll get an additional effect on you. It's interesting. So like the attacks cost a lot, so you have to like try to make it worth it. So you're blocking, and then you're just like, all right, they have a weak turn. Let me save these cards to pitch a bunch to play this giant attack. Like one of the specialization cards for Bravo is called Crippling Crush. It costs like I think it's like offhand it's like 7, which is a lot of that's it costs 7 is like attacks for like 11, and if it hits for 4 or more, they have to discard 2 cards. So like it's it's stuff like that. You want to like tax them and hit them hard. It's
Big, just
control.
big like single turns instead of
Yeah.
like chipping away. Yeah, I mean, still probably not fully my style, but he sounds cool. I mean,
Some people love Bravo. It's not my play style, so I understand, and I feel like we're kind of close. I think you're definitely in the aggro Katsu kind of
yeah,
thing.
I like aggro. I mean,
I'm more
for
the
the
mid
most part,
range. Yeah. Next is Dorinthia. Dorinthia is the warrior class, the first warrior that we got. She has a sword called Dawnblade. If Dawnblade hits twice in a turn, you put a +1 counter on it. So you just kind of like you try to trick them into taking damage with the sword and just making the sword get bigger and bigger because it only costs 1 to attack with the sword. So you're playing a lot of attack reactions, which are played almost like combat tricks. So uh, the deck feels very trap card centric. So you're attacking with the sword, and they're like, okay, I'll just block for the amount. And you're like, no, add 3, add 4. Oh, this card bounces one of your defending cards back to your hand. Stuff like that. And then you try to build up like a big old sword to keep attacking with.
that one sounds somewhat my play style. I'd be
We'll give it a
interested in that
check.
one.
We'll give it an old check mark.
Yeah, I'll give that one a check mark.
She's
I
cool.
think
She has like the Joan of Arc kind of feel to her.
yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of, you know,
Well, she looks like a woman in battle with like just like this really like strong armor on. She's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But we're
see,
getting to the
it's not having the visuals for me. It
yeah.
just,
I'll show you all of them later.
oh yeah,
Okay. Oh yeah. Next we
yeah.
have Viscerai. Now this is our friend Gary's favorite hero. Absolutely. This This is a rune blade. Rune blade means kind of does sword stuff and like arcane damage or magic damage. So it's like a split damage hero. Makes rune chants, these little like I guess you would call them pentagrams or whatever, that when you attack they break and deal like 1 damage. So you like build up rune chants, attack, come in with magic damage and physical damage. Magic damage you can't block with regular cards. You have to like have certain armor to defend it.
So magic damage you can't block with. What do you have to block with?
So there are equipment that have something called arcane barrier. You pay 1 resource to block 1 arcane damage.
He sounds kind of cool.
It's very cool, very cool looking. Kind of wears this like dark armor. It's all purpley. You know, Gary. If Gary's obsessed, and we need to have a chat with him and a real intervention. But is that something? It's like also kind of aggro.
That sounds pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah, sounds cool. Next we have Azalea.
That's cool.
Ranger. This is the bow and arrow class. So Azalea, her attacks are arrows. So in the game, you have an arsenal. It's where you can place a card from your hand at the end of the turn into your arsenal. It's 1 card, you place it face down. You can only attack with it or play it. You can't defend with it. So the arrows need to be played from arsenal, right? It needs to be coming from your quiver.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very hard to play, and she's not very good. But, and I'm sorry to all the Azalea fans out there, it's kind of cool. It's a flavor win that you can like shoot arrows from your arsenal. What do you think about that? And the arrows have like good on hits. Like if this hits,
I think I might have played this one.
Maybe
like that one we played, the one game. I just remember like having arrows, and you'd be like, "You got an arsenal," though, and I just wasn't able to do anything with them.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, we played some limited Arcane Rising at some point, I think, and
yeah, was it limited?
Yeah,
and I did not do well at all.
Yeah,
it was bad.
And
I was like, I got this. This is. But
Arcane Rising was it was my mistake.
I really didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, we should start with Welcome to Wraith, the first set.
That's the thing. You got to sit me down and teach me how to play.
We're gonna say no on Azalea for you.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that card.
Next is Kano, the Wizard. You also tried to play Kano, but this is a combo deck, right? Traditionally, it's a combo deck. You're trying to. It's all magic damage, all arcane damage, right? So you're just playing spells. It's a burn deck, right? But it's not like an aggro burn deck. You're trying to play a bunch of different burn spells in 1 turn, typically, to like deal like 30 damage. But you got to know how the deck works. If you don't know how the deck works, it's like even if you do know, you can totally whiff, right? So it's a combo deck. It's very high variance in terms of win rate, but it's cool though.
Yeah, that does not sound like me. I would mess that up so many times. I mean, combo sounds cool, but I know myself, and I know that I'd never be able to do it.
It's fair. Next, we got Dash. Dash is a mechanologist. So this is like the steampunk hero. Dash can start the game with an item out of your choice from your deck, and different items do different things. And the main thing that mechanologist cards do is boost. So when you play it, you exile the top card of your deck, and if it's another mechanologist card, the thing you boosted gets go again. So you're shrinking your deck and going wide. So you just like, you gotta win, or else you're not gonna have a deck left. But you do hit pretty hard. Now there's other ways to play the deck, but it's pretty cool.
It sounds pretty cool. It sounds like I like that.
Let's go again.
Like, all right.
That's a yes for Dan.
Yeah, it's a yes.
Next we're going with Chain. Now Chain got Living Legend.
Okay.
So, but
I'll play him.
So play him. Chain was a Shadow Rune Blade. I'm just gonna you don't have to say yes or no on Chain because he's a Living Legend. Shadow Rune Blade basically milled himself to or milled stuff into his banished zone himself to play things from his banished zone and we might have played the Blitz deck version
Yeah.
of this. Very go wide, do crazy things, but also like the things that you banish into your banish zone have blood debt, so they can deal damage to you. So it's like, hey, you better win or don't win. Sound cool?
Yeah, he sounds cool.
My favorite hero, Leviah, is a brute, shadow brute. And what she does is you banish cards from your graveyard to turn off the blood debt, right? So she can get a bunch of cards with blood debt into her banish zone, but she has to banish a 6 attack or more to turn it off. So you get a lot of high rate cards at the cost of maybe you whiff, because when you banish stuff from your graveyard, it's 3 at random. It's not whatever you
Um,
want. So
so you could miss and then you
and
take the
lose.
damage.
Yeah, I've taken like 25 damage to the dome because I whiffed. I
Definitely.
wouldn't recommend this. I At the top of the show I mentioned it's like, well, I might try to sell them on Levi, but I don't think.
Change your mind.
Change my
Sounds
mind.
cool. Sounds like you're living life on the edge, but
Oh yeah.
sounds like it could pay off.
I mean, if you don't whiff, you could if you don't whiff and you like keep momentum and don't lose tempo, the deck is pretty unbeatable. But it's a little bit easy to lose momentum, and it's a little sometimes easy to whiff. But
Yeah, I'm a whiffer. I probably would if I didn't. I get land screwed. I would whiff. So
the next
I'd probably pass.
pass, we're gonna say pass on that one. Next we have Bolton. This is the light warrior. This is a combo deck typically in classic constructed, but what he does is he banishes things from his hand into his soul. So basically you banish it underneath the hero, and you can use the cards in there to give things go again. But what he does best is he has like these cards that let you attack a bunch of different times with these sabers. So like lightsaber, not lightsaber, but like sabers, for like 6 a piece, like 3 times each in a turn. So you basically set up for this big combo turn, and then you go off. It's not if the opponent is able to efficiently block it, you're kind of screwed. But if they can't, you typically win the game.
He sounds cool, but I don't know if I'd play him.
Next
So
is
I'll be fine.
Next is Prism, Light Illusionist. Prism is living legend, basically, which she attacks with like angels and creates little shields and uses a lot of auras, a lot of enchantment stuff. I hate her with a passion. She was the most annoying hero to play against, and I'm glad she's gone. No
And
RIP.
yes, I would play her.
Next is Lexi. We have 3 elemental heroes in a row, and there's 3 elemental heroes. There's 3 elements that they could use. Each of them have 2. Lexi is the ranger who can use lightning and ice. Oldham is the guardian who can use ice and earth. And then Briar is the rune blade that can use lightning and earth. So Lexi can ice is all about taxing and like making things cost more or making you discard. Lightning's all about going really fast. So she does a little bit of that, but she also has to do the arrow stuff. So you need to play things from Arsenal. It's probably a no for you based on your negative experience. I understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna go no.
Oldham is very control, does a lot of ice stuff, big attacks like Bravo, but also has like an ice hammer that if it hits, they get like a frostbite, which makes their next thing attack more or cost more.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty
Is this
awesome.
the is this the like the dwarf dude?
Yeah, yeah, but he's normal size, but yeah, he looks like old man
Oh
Winter.
yeah. Yeah. Just I mean like he looks like a
He's
yeah,
awesome.
he's cool. He's cool.
Briar is a kind of like a druid in a way, uses the attacks to basically the earth side of her uses like these big attacks, and then the lightning side is also to go fast and has like arcane damage as well because it's a rune blade. It's a really good deck. The design is probably the most questionable on you know, the power level in my opinion. But it still isn't Living Legend yet. It's the close. It's almost like 3 wins away.
Oh, so it will get.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
probably don't play that one.
Well, I want to play that. I want to invest all my money into it.
And
But it
then
sounds cool. Sounds like something I probably would have played.
yeah, and it has like some cool combo stuff as well. And then we're here at the last 4 heroes. Icelander is the Ice Wizard.
Icelander.
Yeah, Icelander. It's she is a elemental wizard that can use ice. So what she does is when you play a ice card on your opponent's turn, like instant speed, they get
Mhm.
a frostbite. So you're like, it's a really cool control deck. You're throwing arcane damage at them. You're taxing their stuff, and then you can play like regular attacks too if you want. Some people do. They call it Battle Wizard. That deck. Very cool. What do you think?
Sounds kind of cool.
All
Sounds
right.
like something like. I think it's cool. I'll put a yeah. I could see myself playing that.
This next one, I think you'd be very interested in. This is a draconic ninja. This is Phi.
Is it a dragon?
It has the essence of dragon, so like kind of fire type stuff.
Essence of
Just
dragon.
like Katsu, it's all aggro all the time. You're going attack, 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 and then it has a keyword called rupture that it can use. Where if this is like the fourth attack in the turn, it gets a bonus. So
Yeah.
and then it has a little thing called Phoenix Flames, which are like in your start the game in your graveyard, and you can return them to your hand to attack for 1, just to keep the chain going. This is like the dream Dan deck, I think.
Yeah. I think that it's like the way we're saying it. I was like, this is the one I want to play. Let's go.
Dromai is Draconic Illusionist, so Dromai makes ash tokens, which is just pieces of ash, but then you can
Gotcha.
transform them into dragons. And then this is going to be the closest to magic probably, because you have an actual board state, the dragons stay out, and your opponents have to make a decision. Well, do I want to attack their life total, or do I want to kill the dragons?
That sounds cool. Actually, I like that.
It's very cool. It's hard to play, but once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. There's actually someone that plays at my LGS that switched to Flesh and Blood just because they had a viable dragon deck. And it's like, you can't play dragons in Magic. He was like, you just can't.
Yeah, you can't. They make them too big.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the dragons, or they're like the eggs that you gotta like do a bunch of stuff just to get them to come out. Yeah, I like dragons. I'm in.
And finally, I think I sent a picture to you of this hero. It's an assassin hero. His name's Arachne, or their name's Arachne. Their gender has not been revealed, or they could just be genderless. They attack you, and then you look at the top card. They have like you're fulfilling contracts. So each attack will have a contract. It's like, if this hits, banish the top card of your opponent's deck. If it's a certain type of card based on whatever the text says, you get a silver token. And then you can use those silver tokens to buy back equipment, stuff like that.
It's
It's
kind of
kind of like a
cool.
mill deck, but like kind of control.
You know me and Mill.
I know. I saw that. I thought about you right away.
I'm a Mill guy. Yeah, let's go. I'm in. I'm in for that one.
Cool.
Put me
Cool.
down. I'll take 2.
Take 2. And it looks like it's making a return in the new set coming in March. So, all right. So we just went through all the heroes. It's a little bit of a slog, but we got there. So it looks like based on this, you're interested in Runeblade. You're interested in Ninja, big time. You would be interested in the Dorinthia and Arachne, and then also maybe some dragons and Icelander. So, do you have any specific questions about the game before we kind of say our goodbyes? And
No, I mean you pretty much now that I know it has like an online client, I'm probably gonna I'm more inclined to test that out for a bit before because that's just getting comfortable with the game before you go do paper magic or not. That's what I'm just so used to saying magic, paper,
Paper,
flesh
Flesh,
and
and
blood.
Blood. Yeah.
You know, like going to like a local game store and sitting down. Other than that, is what? How many cards in a pack?
It's a 15 or 14 card pack based on
One rare.
if it's a draft pack. It's the rarities are common, rare. There's no uncommon. Rares are more like the uncommons, and then there's majestic, which is like a mythic, and then like the highest rarity is legendary, which is like you can open one of those a case usually, like one every 4 boxes, and then there's fableds, which is like the rarest card in the game. They're not typically playable, like some are unfortunately, but like they're trying to make them either not as playable or just like really cool reprint, like alternate art versions of things that already
Yeah.
exist, because they're super rare. We don't want people having to
Yeah, you
pay.
don't want to force someone to have to, like, in order like have a competitive advantage, you price people out.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
so that's it. And like then the supplemental uh deck or packs are a little bit smaller because you can't draft with them. But yeah, any other questions?
When do I start?
Yes,
You're hired.
that means we did this work. Did this work? Did
Yeah. No,
was this
I
enlightening
mean,
for you?
yes. I mean, it is. Well, I didn't know that they were. It came out of New Zealand, and
That was it. That was
and
it.
that was it. That you had me.
Legend
The
Story
rest was just
Studios, if you're listening, and we know you are, uh hey, coming from New Zealand, it's the biggest thing. That's what,
yeah. I just watched Lord of the Rings this like a couple
awesome.
weeks ago.
I it's the best. It's the
It
best.
is the
Just
best. It is.
like flesh
It
and
still
blood.
holds up. Like that's the thing. I was like, man, it is still good.
So good. So good.
We saw that. I saw that when I was there. I remember. I'll never forget the end of the first Lord of the Rings because I thought that like
Because we were
I thought it was
kids,
gonna
right?
be a conclusion. I didn't
Yeah.
know it was like and I was so mad. I walked out like, what? They didn't destroy the ring. I was like, there's 2 more movies or books. I
Yeah.
had no,
This is the first
but
time Dan learned of the concept of a trilogy.
yeah, it hit me. I was like, what?
um,
But yeah, no, I definitely it did definitely help. I like hearing about the heroes, the different styles, because I like I like getting deck building, making it my own. So I'd probably find one of the heroes I like, and then make uh, a different style deck.
and then also, you know, and I do want to say there's a couple events this month. If you wanted to tag along, one on my birthday. Um,
Oh, yeah, you did tell me about that.
the cool thing is you don't have to play the main event. There's side events. There's on-demand drafts. So once you
Yeah,
get the hang of the drafts, you can just go. I'm going to go jam drafts at an event. But we'll talk about that off air. And thank you for coming on, Dan. Obviously, we've known each other for so long, and this was a long time coming. But I
yeah,
think this is this. I hope this will be helpful for people listening who have friends like me who, it's not like Dan's anti flesh and blood. He just didn't know a lot about it. And I hope we can use this or not. But either way, I hope you enjoyed. Now, do you have anything to plug, Dan?
do I have anything? I don't have. No, not. I don't have any plugs.
All right,
I
cool.
I got a few outlets. They can use some plugs, but I'm not. My new book. It's called "How to Be
On a podcast.
on a Podcast." How to get on Tom's podcast.
Well, hey, listen. Well, once you get a hang of the game
Yeah,
and become the next professional player, you'll always have a spot on this podcast. Now, everyone can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. You can like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube, which is greatly appreciated. The Patreon is in the link tree. The Buds Discord active community is also in the link tree below. And what else is there? I don't know. Be good to each other. 2023 is going to be huge. If you're at Battle Hard, New Jersey, come say hi. If you're at the Calling in Indianapolis, come and say hi. It's going to be a blast. Now, Dan, I like to end every episode talk a little bit about food. Is there anything like really tasty and delicious you've eaten the past week?
tasty and delicious. I I can't say that. I can say we went to a. I don't know what we were. I had the opposite
Oh
where it was like
no.
real bad, real bad. It was a bowling alley though, so I don't know what we expected. It was like,
Wait, what? The bowling alley food wasn't good?
I know, right? I'm trying to think what I've had food wise. It would be. I mean Taco Bell. I like their nacho fries. Love
There
them.
you go. There you go. I haven't had a Taco Bell in a minute, but I did have the chili lime fries with a side of cheese sauce yesterday that were pretty awesome at a place called Cow
Sounds
Patties
awesome.
in Wantage, New Jersey. It was up there in the sticks. So check it out if you're out there. And Cow Patties, if you're listening, shoot a sponsorship.
Yeah, and Taco Bell. If you're out, if you're out there, get some nacho fries.
Amen. Well, that'll do it for the show. Everybody have a good week. We'll be back next week with U.S. national runner-up and world's top 8 competitor, Daniel Rakowski. So check out that one. It's going to be a lot of fun.
He sounds like a better Daniel.
I don't know. Yeah, equal. All right. See you, everybody.